The Michael Medved Show. All across America. This is The Michael Medved Show.
And it is 44 minutes after the hour on The Michael Medved Show. As promised, I am joined by Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. He has been one of the leaders fighting for tax reform, fighting for Obamacare repeal and replace, and also in terms of draining the swamp from special interest on solar energy, which we will get to in just a moment. Senator Tillis, an honor to speak to you, sir.
It's great to be on the show.
Oh, thank you. Before we get to this issue of the solar panels and the push for government interference in that market, I just wanted to speak to you for a moment about some headlines you made the other day when the president came up to the Senate, and there was a lot of drama going on with Senator Corker and Senator Flake. You were photographed getting some popcorn in advance of the luncheon meeting. Was there a message in that?
Well, yeah, what I was really trying to do is that the media is constantly trying to focus on these distractions. I knew full well I was going to go through a lobby full of the press, and I could either have to deal with their questions that I think and oftentimes are seeking to divide, or I could give them a diversion. And honestly, all I had to do was carry that bag of popcorn, and they asked me if I was bringing it to the meeting. I said, yes, I was. And a part of it was really making light of things that, frankly, it should not be in the discourse. We promised tax reform. We promised health care reform, and I'm all about removing distractions. And I actually used a distraction to remove a distraction, at least for me.
Well, I think it worked, and apparently the meeting was a love fest, as President Trump reported. And since that meeting, you've made some stunning progress, particularly over on the House side, as a matter of fact, in pushing for tax reform. Are we going to get those tax cuts?
I do believe we are. I think that the pace is going to be something that is much more brisk. I believe that we have a better base of members who are unified in the belief that we have to fulfill this promise. Right now, we're going through, obviously, when you cut taxes, you got to pay for it. And you can make some assumptions about the economic growth that pays for it, and that will be baked into the plan. But at the end of the day, some of the irrational exceptions and exemptions, the offsets that we're going to need, we're going to have to dig into those and take a serious look at it. But I feel very, very optimistic that we're going to produce an outcome. And right now, the leader is sending the right message. He's made it clear to us that we could be working all through the weekend. Actually, we'll work through Thanksgiving week and hopefully have something that goes to conference and gets to the president's desk so that it can have the economic impact that our national economy needs.
Oh, well, God willing. And speaking of economic impact, you have been a leader on this issue of the solar panels. And the more I read about this, the more outrageous it sounds. They're two foreign-owned companies, right, that are pushing to greatly increase the tariffs on these key solar panels that would really cripple the solar industry in America. And that industry has been doing pretty okay the less it's relied on government, hasn't it?
Well, that's exactly right. As a matter of fact, the tax credits that expire in 2021, the industry is fine. They have certainty. They know they'll no longer receive tax credits. But we've got a going concern in terms of the solar industry in the United States. North Carolina is one of the top three states in the country. And, you know, the story about the business that's trying to get a tariff placed on imports for solar panels, it's an interesting one. It's one where they've failed to create a business model that's competitive in the United States. They've gone bankrupt, and now what they want to do is add an artificial cost to an industry that's working just fine versus figure out how they can compete in a global marketplace. And we're working very hard with the administration to see if we can avoid basically an artificial tax that everybody knows at the end of the day will be paid by ratepayers, and it will be damaging to tens of thousands of jobs across the country.
I know that
goes into place.
I know the Heritage Foundation, which is always fighting for smaller government, has been very active in this. You have 16 senators who've signed up. Do you think you're going to be able to persuade President Trump?
Well, we hope so. I think if you look at it and look at the first, it's just a fundamentally unfair trade decision. Second, when you take a look at a president who has created, is committed to creating jobs, this could be the worst possible decision to put forth. It's not sustaining, and it will have an immediate impact. It's already having an impact to a certain extent because you can't take long-term positions based on a cost going up substantially. So it's already having a moderate effect now. It'll have a devastating effect if it goes into place.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those things where it's coming before the International Trade Commission. The administration can have an impact, Congress can have an impact, but the public can have an impact. What's the best way people can find out more about this, Senator?
Well, I tell you, they can contact my office. We can give them a lot of briefing information, and we need to have, there are some people on my side of the aisle, when you hear solar, they for sometimes reflexively think solar is bad. They need to understand this is critically important, and if you're a free market conservative, you cannot possibly be on the other side of this issue. And we're doing everything we can to educate people. We can provide you with information. We need to get this out into the public so that the president actually does everything that he can to prevent this policy from going into place. And I think we've got a good opportunity, but we've got to go after it because the clock is ticking.
Well, as Senator, I know the clock is ticking for you as well, and I just want to tell you that there are lots of us out there, and not just in North Carolina, but all across the country, who appreciate your not being distracted by some of the stuff that the media love to focus on, and keeping your eye on the prize, which is smaller government, which is cuts in spending, which is cuts in taxes, fixing Obamacare, and preventing these bankrupt foreign companies from taking advantage of this new attempt to louse up the solar industry. That's Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. And you can get all the perspective you need on this issue by going to usmadesolar.org. That's usmadesolar, SOLAR.org. And we'll be right back on the Medved Show with your calls and more. 1-800-955-1776.
This is the Michael Medved Show. Portions of the Michael Medved Show are brought to you in part by usmadesolar.org.